What's way more sadistic than it seems? Making your 90-year-old grandma/grandpa with end-stage dementia full code. CPR and defibrillation are violent and painful. We will break their ribs while doing CPR. Possibly all of them. It's just plain cruel. As a nurse, it is the worst part of my job. Not the dying, not the blood, not the poop, it's the keeping someone alive by force. I understand losing a loved one is painful and horrible, I've been there. But trust me, the kindest thing you could do for them is to let them die peacefully. Agreed. We need to normalize the talk about end-of-life care. We need to be big enough to be clear about how much resuscitation is desired and what quality of life is priority. TV and movies don't make this clear. A friend survived a massive heart attack in part due to CPR and a defibrillator. He said it hurt like hell. Family YouTube channels. I don't think there is ever a healthy way to profit off your kids like that. Yes, and the channel that adopted a kiddo from China, I think? Going against all the sage advice they got from lawyers, med profesh etc. They got the kiddo, and kiddo needs a lot of support. Attachment disorder, on autism spectrum. Anywho, she goes on her channel with her husband, fake crying, fake remorse, telling the sad tale of having to rehome their son. My rage is coming on. Let me find a link. Micah Stover, backlash after YouTubers give up adopted son. Okay, so I hope more than anything that kiddo will get what he needs in a family. And, fuck family channels, they are horrible and exploitative. Edit, I also think foster families who adopt children and return them to child protection services are also reprehensible. Especially when the children and teens are returned to the system because of behavioral issues. The only way is when it isn't the focus very much at all, and their content is primarily like house cleaning, motivation or journaling and planning, or something that happens to include their kids in the odd clip because cleaning a house with young kids means maneuvering around them. Lifestyle stuff. There's also the odd good one where it's like, hey, we as a family like to write and sing songs, here's that. Which is fine because it doesn't majorly invade the privacy of the kids, they clearly are excited about it, etc. But the ones that focus specifically on the children, and not just the day-to-day life of a parent which happens to include their kids. Yeah, it's an absolute shit show. So unhealthy. Even worse if they use pranks or anything. Peeing all over the public toilet seat. You know someone will desperately need to poop and now you've forced them into a terrible decision. I was so sick of cleaning other women's piss. Just to sit. They're frickin' animals. Now with COVID, people seem tidier. I think it's because a lot of women hover, which is so annoying and inconsiderate. They are the source of the problem, spraying their piss everywhere. Scary or humiliating pranks, or public shaming for punishment, of young children. I hate it when people are mean to kids, anyone, really, but 10,000% kids, and call it in good fun. If the target isn't having fun, it's not fun. It's just sadistic and mean-spirited. A few years ago here in the UK there was a nurse called Jacinta Saldana who committed suicide after she was the target of a prank call that was broadcasted on radio while at work in the hospital. Security guards found her hanging body along with a note blaming the call and the poor handling of the situation by her managers. Making someone else debug your code. With no comments. I once had a senior developer use two-letter variables to hold numbers. Okay, now var MB is up to 6 and RF is 3 when it crashes. Fuck. Requiring you to get an auto inspection at a place that also does auto repairs. The inspector has literally every incentive to not pass your vehicle on the first go. Mandatory state inspections ought to be done by state inspectors that don't really have a financial stake in whether you pass or fail. Mandatory state inspections ought to be done by state inspectors that don't really have a financial stake in whether you pass or fail. This is how it works in Northern Ireland and is the only part of the UK where that is the case. It goes back to the days of the Troubles when garage owners might be doing bad things to vehicles, or are encouraged to pass vehicles that really should fail, etc. Putting all the test centers in government hands declawed much of that. Some places do that. Massachusetts has both DMV testing sites and accredited garages. You'll wait in a long line at the DMV place but you won't get ripped off. Medical residencies. Institution mandates years of working 80+ hours a week and being paid the equivalent of a minimum wage hourly. The merit for experience is sound, but these residents are being paid crap while the patients are still being charged the full rate. It's an absolute profit machine. Then, once the residents are experienced enough, they're punted off and a new herd is brought in to exploit. Bonus points for Stockholming the new herd into thinking they'll earn so much from having to stay awake for so long and operating on people with the functional capabilities of a drunk person, and then looking down their nose at anyone who think they can be a competent medical professional without licking the butthole of the attending. Cries in our/residency. Class pets, especially rodents. They're almost never given appropriate care, they're put in unsuitable cages. Think of all the class hamsters that get stuck and die in those colorful plastic tunnels, and they rarely live anything resembling their full lifespan. If class pets are meant to teach kids about responsibility, teach them the proper requirements instead of subjecting the poor animals to awful conditions and the stress of little kids trying to grab and pet them. I totally agree. My kindergarten had an alternative approach that I think was actually fairly beneficial. We had a stuffed panda, our mascot, and each week, a new student would bring him home and document what they did with him, write a little diary entry, and take pictures for the class photo album. This gave the kids that lesson in responsibility, obviously not the same as a real animal, but we all took it very seriously, but without putting an innocent animal into a harmful situation. I wish more schools would do away with the class pets and opt for something similar to what we had. In the right circumstances they can be okay, but that's rare. My high school had 2 hedgehogs that were the bio class pets. The school wanted to get a class pets and bio teacher volunteered but has really strict requirements and he got to choose the animal. They wrote out a legal contract about it with him and in end, it was basically he owned them and would take them home on weekends, holidays and over the summer, but during the school days, they lived in this epic enclosure that the shop class built in one of the theory cabinets. Not letting kids leave class when they need the bathroom. My parents told me when I was a kid that if I had to go to the bathroom and a teacher wouldn't let me, to just ignore them and go. Only did it a couple times and nothing bad happened. Yeah, I'd queer this started but fuck whoever started it lol. Not a fan of others restricting people's goddamn bodily functions. Happens in the job world too, only instead of not being allowed to use the restroom people sit there with a stupid fucking look on their face and act like you're some kind of fucking alien for having to take a shit longer than 2 fucking seconds, and it's fucking dumb. Tickling. Especially when you tell them to stop and they don't. There was a Reddit thread a while ago talking about the most fucked up thing you saw happening at a friend's house as a kid. One story that didn't get much attention was a kid had gone over to the new neighbor's house for a play date. The dad came into the room, tickled his daughter, 8 years old I think, non-stop until she peed herself. He then got up and left, leaving the girl super embarrassed in front of her new friend. That shit disturbed the fuck out of me. Yes. It can be a form of torture. Videos where people harass their pets to see their cute reactions. That one viral one going around right now where the owner pretends to give the dog treats, and the third time the dog just looks at the owner and starts growling like bitch there better be a goddamn treat there. Or videos of people leaving their pets out in the wild and pretending that they are rescuing it. Glue traps for mice. I used to share space for my business with a guy who used those traps. I would come in the morning and there would be a high-pitched screaming that would go on for hours. When I realized what it was. My dad used kindness traps, but forgot to check them. So they became concentration camps. Then he swapped to normal traps. Fuck, but those things are traumatizing. I made the mistake of using them once. I came in the next morning and found 2 mice that were literally torn apart. Missing feet, I pulled out, still suffering. Also my cat got her foot stuck to one, and had to go to the vet to get it off, because it was pulling so hard it was tearing her skin. I do everything I can to talk people out of using glue traps. Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox, guaranteed.